People used to treat me like I was nothing, just another black face in a world that seemed to belittle my existence. I never imagined that after years of clawing my way to the top, I would be removed from my first-class seat for a late-arriving white passenger, not because I was in the wrong, but because of the color of my skin. As the flight attendant's polite yet firm request sank in, disbelief mingled with a simmering frustration. I had just negotiated a $120 million investment with this airline, and yet here I was, confronted with a blatant act of racial bias. My mind flashed back to Detroit, where my mother instilled in me the value of resilience, not folding under pressure, even when society seems hell-bent on pushing you down. I calmly asked for the names of the employees involved, my voice steady despite the anger bubbling beneath. The drama unfolded as fellow passengers whipped out their phones, capturing a moment that would soon go viral. Once on the ground, instead of meekly accepting an apology, I met the airline's CEO with a power move of my own. I rescinded my $25 million investment, making it abundantly clear that dignity and respect were non-negotiable. The stunned silence of the boardroom was almost palpable as the ramifications of their actions began to pour in. Stock prices plummeting, reputations tarnished. In the end, this battle was never about money. It was about standing tall against discrimination. I found my voice amid chaos, and I won't let anyone silence it again. What would you have done in my place? "Excuse me, sir, but I'll need you to vacate that seat," the flight attendant said, her voice steady yet cold, as she gestured toward the seat beside her. The black CEO, dressed in tailored attire that spoke of both success and authority, blinked in disbelief. "Is there a problem?" "I'm in 2A, he replied, scanning his boarding pass again, as if it might somehow change the situation. "True's been upgraded, is arriving shortly. We need that seat for him." She didn't even look him in the eye. "Upgraded?" he echoed, anger simmering beneath his calm. "Is it because I'm black? Because I don't see that happening for anyone else in this cabin?" The nearby white executive, Colin Berkeley, shrugged, a condescending smile plastered across his face. "Come on, man, not worth the trouble, just move." The tension crackled in the air like static. "I'm not moving," the CEO said, his voice low but firm. "I'm a paying customer and I demand to speak to your supervisor." The flight attendant crossed her arms. "You can't refuse. Just think about your own reputation." Sliced through his mind, his mother's words echoed, "Don't let them break you." He straightened resolutely. "I'll have the names of everyone involved in this decision, and you may want to check your policies." As whispers and cameras flickered across the cabin, the fight felt larger than a seat dispute. It was authority clashing against bias, power shifting underfoot. Lane landed, the CEO marched into the meeting with the airline's CEO, Harold Flint. "Your company will need to reconsider our agreement," he stated, his tone unwavering. "You've just lost $25 million, and I'm not done yet." The room fell silent. The implications of their choices hung grimly in the air, but he felt a spark of determination. Change was coming. The cabin felt tense as the CEO adjusted his tie, the warmth of the first-class cabin suddenly feeling suffocating. Moments earlier, he'd relished the idea of a well-deserved flight home after securing a monumental $120 million deal with the airline. Now, his heart sank as the flight attendant approached, her smile faltering as she explained the dilemma. "I'm sorry, sir, but we need to give this seat to another passenger." He glanced over to where a late-arriving white executive stood, smugly checking his watch, completely unaware of how the shift in his presence had turned the air heavy with implications. He shouldn't have been surprised. Memories flashed through his mind, his mother's voice echoing in his ears. "Don't let them see you fold." Still, the indignity of being asked to move gnawed at him. "This is my seat," he stated calmly, annoyance simmering beneath the surface. The attendant's eyes darted nervously, but she maintained her stance, unaffected by his disappointment. Colin Berkeley, the entitled figure standing nearby, exchanged a glance with her, a smirk that said he belonged in a world the CEO had fought so hard to penetrate. As the seconds ticked on, the tension morphed into something more potent. It wasn't just a matter of seats anymore. It was a testament to all the subtle, insidious injustices he had faced, not just today, but throughout his career. When he asked for everyone's name involved, the realization hit him firmly. Enough was enough. The discomfort below the surface ignited to a resolute fire. By the time he disembarked, his pulse raced. In the boardroom, he stood poised, ready. "I'm revising my investment," he declared, the weight of past experiences and quiet struggles coalescing into an unwavering resolve. The faces before him twisted in shock. In that moment, he wasn't just fighting for himself, he was reclaiming power, standing firm in his right to be seen, to be heard. As the plane cruised at altitude, the tension in first class thickened. The black CEO shifted in his seat, eyeing the flight attendant. "You won't need to do that," he said, his voice steady, underscoring the absurdity of her request. "I'm in 2A. The attendant hesitated, then glanced awkwardly at the late-arriving passenger, a white man radiating entitlement. The CEO caught the disdainful smirk just before it was masked. He focused on maintaining his composure, recalling his mother's words, "Never let them see you fold." "Just to confirm," he continued, his voice dropping slightly but carrying authority, "I'd like the names of everyone involved in this decision." The flight attendant paled, but Colin Berkeley, the executive seated 2 rows ahead, leaned back with a feigned indifference, dismissing the scene as an inconvenience. "Let it go, man," he muttered. "No, I won't, not this time," the CEO replied, his fingers gripping the armrest, heart steadying. He felt a subtle shift inside him, a clarity emerging from years of suppressed indignation. As the cabin buzzed with whispers, a passenger across the aisle pulled out their phone, capturing the unfolding drama. In that moment, the CEO embraced the tiny victory, his quiet defiance igniting whispers of solidarity among fellow travelers. When the plane touched down, he walked confidently into the boardroom, his stature unwavering. "I'm reversing that investment," he declared to the stunned executives gathered, eyes widening in shock. "Your treatment of me and countless others won't go unrecognized." He felt a surge of courage wash over him as he laid out the implications. A plummeting stock price, public backlash, and a chance for systemic change. The cascade of events had begun. The flight was tense, a charged atmosphere settling over first class as an uncomfortable silence enveloped the scene. The CEO sat in seat 2A, firm in his presence. A successful black man in his early 40s, he had just inked a $120 million investment with the airline, a deal that promised a fresh chapter for both parties. Yet, faced with the flight attendant's polite insistence to move for a late-arriving white passenger, he felt a familiar sting of injustice wash over him. "Sir, would accommodate Mr. Berkeley?" the attendant said while giving an apologetic smile, but the CEO understood. It wasn't about courtesy, it was about power, about a system that expected him, regardless of his status, to yield. Confusion morphed into anger as he glanced at Colin Berkeley, an entitled executive who merely shrugged, a smirk tugging at his lips. In that flash of recognition, the CEO's mind raced back to Detroit, lessons from his mother about dignity, resilience, about standing firm against discrimination. He inhaled deeply, filling the space with a quiet defiance. "I'd like the names of the crew involved," he said, his tone calm but steely. Around them, passengers began to pull out their phones. The ensuing exchange spiraled into a viral moment midair. Faces reflected in screens as the drama unfolded. He stood his ground, transforming outrage into resolve. After landing, a palpable tension coursed through the boardroom as he faced Harold Flint, the airline's CEO. "I'm reversing my $25 million investment," he stated, voice steady, cutting through the astonished silence. Flint's face blanched, the executives visibly recoiling at the implications. Financial chaos ensued. Stock prices plummeted, and whispers turned to shouts of concern in corporate corridors as word spread. The CEO's legal team unearthed a trail of complaints against the VP who demanded his removal. Public outrage grew, echoing through social media as countless voices shared their experiences of similar indignities. Petersburg news broke. The VP was fired, a stunning shift in corporate machinery. The CEO couldn't help but feel a swell of triumph. This was more than a personal victory. It was justice, a deep, palpable breath of accountability. Hurricanes in his chair reflecting on the journey. This was never just about money. It was about dignity, about standing up against a relentless system. The flight attendant's face lingered in his mind, but it was the faces of those inspired by his stance that would fuel the change. The flicker of silent applause filled the air as he reaffirmed his worth, a powerful reminder that no one could dictate his place, neither in the sky nor in life. As the plane descended, the CEO felt a mix of triumph and resolution wash over him. He had faced a moment that sought to undermine his worth, but instead, it had fortified him, reminded him of the countless battles he'd fought throughout his life. With every step away from that plane, he didn't carry just the weight of his success. He carried the hopes of many who had suffered similar indignities. He thought back to his mother's words in Detroit, a soothing wisdom that urged him to stand tall against discrimination, even when it seemed insurmountable. Now, the airline was forced to reckon with its actions, catalyzing change that spoke to a greater truth. It was never merely about a seat or the money, it was about dignity. But as he reflected on this experience, he couldn't help but wonder, do you think I went too far? Have you ever had someone treat you like that? Share your thoughts in the comments. Let's discuss what justice really looks like and how we hold systems accountable together.